The bright lights of a CNN town hall set the scene. Judge Judy and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett were seated across from each other, ready to discuss criminal justice reform. What started as a civil debate was about to erupt into one of the most shocking political clashes of the year. Judge Judy, known for her sharp wit and no-nonsense attitude, just heard something that made her blood boil. Her finger shot out, pointing directly at the young Texas Democrat. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Judge Judy's voice boomed, her face flushed with fury. 30 years on the bench, and I have to listen to this? But what happened next stunned everyone. Jasmine Crockett's response was so calm, so calculated, and so devastating that it not only silenced a legendary judge, but went viral worldwide within hours. Before we get into this incredible showdown, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of these explosive political moments. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. The tension in that CNN studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Two powerful women, separated by generations and vastly different worldviews, were about to clash in a way that would redefine how America sees judicial authority and political courage. At 81 years old, Judge Judy is more than a TV personality. She's a cultural institution. For over 2 decades, her courtroom show dominated daytime television, making her one of the highest-paid people on TV with a salary that once reached $47 million a year. Her quick judgments and famous catchphrases like, "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining," made her a household name. But Judge Judy isn't just entertainment. She spent 25 years as a real judge in New York's family court, handling over 20,000 cases. Her reputation was built on being tough but fair, cutting through nonsense to deliver justice with brutal honesty. She's a person who commands respect wherever she goes. However, at 81, some wonder if her old-school approach still fits. Her generation believes in strict law and order, personal responsibility, and zero tolerance for excuses. She's never been one to back down from a fight, especially when she feels someone is disrespecting the justice system she's dedicated her life to. On the other side sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a 43-year-old civil rights attorney turned politician, representing Texas's 30th congressional district. Crockett didn't come from political royalty. She earned her way to Congress through hard work, legal expertise, and a commitment to justice. Before her election in 2023, Crockett was a fierce defense attorney and civil rights lawyer. She isn't afraid of powerful people or intimidating situations. In the Texas legislature, she made headlines for her passionate speeches on voting rights, criminal justice reform, and racial equality. What makes Crockett so formidable in a debate is her legal background. She knows how to build an argument, present evidence, and stay calm under pressure. She's also part of a new generation of black women in Congress who refuse to be silenced or intimidated by traditional authority figures. This wasn't just a debate between two individuals. It represented a fundamental clash of two visions for American justice. Judge Judy represents the old guard, tough on crime, personal accountability, and traditional judicial authority. Jasmine Crockett represents a new wave, criminal justice reform, addressing systemic racism, and questioning outdated approaches to law and order. The topic that brought them together was a simple discussion about reform on a CNN town hall. But what was truly at stake was much bigger. Whose vision of justice would resonate with the American people? Could the legendary Judge Judy maintain her authority when challenged by a skilled attorney turned politician? Or would Jasmine Crockett prove that the new generation won't be intimidated by old-school authority? With millions of viewers watching live, both women knew this conversation could define their legacies. Neither was planning to back down. The CNN town hall started normally enough. Host Anderson Cooper introduced both women respectfully, highlighting their impressive careers. The first few questions about criminal justice reform were handled professionally, with both Judge Judy and Crockett sharing their viewpoints clearly. The trouble began when Cooper asked about sentencing disparities in drug crimes. Crockett, speaking with the confidence of someone who has represented countless clients in the system, explained how mandatory minimum sentences disproportionately affect black and brown communities. "The data is clear," Crockett said, looking directly into the camera. "We have a two-tiered justice system where a young black man with a small amount of marijuana gets years in prison, while wealthy white defendants get probation for much more serious crimes. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed, her fingers drumming on the table, a warning sign for anyone familiar with her show. But Crockett continued, "We need to acknowledge that our justice system was built on racist foundations, and simply being tough on crime isn't justice. It's perpetuating inequality." "Excuse me," Judge Judy interrupted, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Racist foundations? I've been in courtrooms for over 30 years, young lady, and justice is blind. It doesn't see color, it sees behavior." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. Anderson Cooper shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. "I've sentenced people of every color, every background. If you commit a crime, you face consequences. That's not racism. That's responsibility." Crockett remained calm, her legal training kicking in. "With respect, Judge Shineland, the statistics tell a different story. Black defendants receive sentences that are on average 19% longer than white defendants for the same crimes. That's not opinion. That's documented fact." Judge Judy's face began to redden. In her world, facts were what happened in her courtroom, not statistics from academic studies. Statistics can be manipulated, Congresswoman. What I saw for 25 years were people making choices, good choices and bad choices. Stop making excuses for criminal behavior. "I'm not making excuses," Crockett replied, her voice steady. "I'm asking why a black teenager with a joint gets 5 years, while a white college student with cocaine gets community service. That's not about choices. That's about bias." The audience began to murmur. Anderson Cooper tried to maintain control, but both women were locked in a stare-down that felt more like a courtroom battle than a TV interview. That's when Judge Judy made her mistake. Instead of sticking to policy, she went personal. "You know what your problem is," Judge Judy said, pointing her finger at Crockett. "Your generation thinks everything is someone else's fault. You want to blame the system instead of holding people accountable for their actions. That's not justice. That's social work." The dismissive tone of your generation hung in the air. Crockett's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. She sat up straighter, her legal training taking over. Furthermore, Judge Judy continued, clearly feeling she had the upper hand. "You've been in Congress for what, 5 minutes? And you think you understand justice better than someone who's actually lived it for 3 decades. Anderson Cooper sensed disaster approaching. "Let's take a step back." But Judge Judy was on a roll. "I've seen thousands of cases, made thousands of decisions, and kept communities safe while you were probably still in law school, learning theories from professors who never set foot in a real courtroom." The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Judge Judy had just questioned Crockett's experience and called her unqualified on live television. Jasmine Crockett sat there for a moment, her hands folded calmly in her lap. The pause felt like an eternity. The audience leaned forward. Judge Judy sat back, clearly expecting an angry outburst or a defensive response. She got neither. Instead, Crockett did the unexpected. She smiled. Not a big smile, but a small, knowing smile that looked more dangerous than any angry response. "Judge Shineland," she said, her voice so calm it was almost a whisper, forcing everyone to lean in. "I have a question for you." Judge Judy, perhaps sensing she'd gone too far, but unable to back down, gestured for her to continue. "In all your years on the bench, did you ever stop to ask why certain communities kept appearing in your courtroom more than others?" The question hung in the air. Judge Judy's confidence began to waver, but she pressed on. "Because those communities have more crime," she said definitively. That's when Jasmine Crockett struck. Her smile never wavered as she leaned forward slightly, her voice still calm, but now carrying the authority of someone who had just been handed the perfect opening. "Judge Shineland, with all due respect, that answer right, there's exactly why we need criminal justice reform." The words hit like a precision strike. Judge Judy's confident expression began to crack as she realized she'd walked into a trap. "You see," Crockett continued, her legal training evident in how she built her argument piece by piece, "what you just said suggests you believe some communities are inherently more criminal than others. But what if I told you that communities with more police presence naturally have more arrests? What if I told you that mandatory minimum laws you support were specifically designed to target crack cocaine, used more in black communities, with sentences 100 times harsher than powder cocaine, used more in white communities? Judge Judy tried to interrupt. Now, wait a minute. But Crockett held up her hand with the quiet authority of someone who had the facts on their side. I'm not finished, Your Honor. You asked about my experience. Let me tell you about my experience. I've represented clients sentenced to decades in prison for drug offenses, while their white counterparts receive probation. I've seen a black teenager get 15 years for armed robbery, while a white teenager who committed the exact same crime got 3 years. I've watched mothers lose their children to a system that treats addiction as a crime in poor communities, but as a health issue in wealthy ones. Judge Judy's face was getting redder, not from anger but from embarrassment. She could feel the audience shifting. But Crockett wasn't done. You mentioned I've been in Congress for 5 minutes. That's true. But before that, I spent years as a public defender and civil rights attorney. I've been inside more courtrooms and fought more cases than most people see in a lifetime. She paused, letting that sink in before delivering her next line with surgical precision. The difference between us, Judge Shineland, is that you sat on a bench and decided fates. I stood in front of benches and fought for justice. You saw defendants as cases to be processed. I saw them as human beings whose lives were being destroyed by a system that was never designed to be fair. The studio was dead silent. Anderson Cooper looked like he wanted to disappear. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't finished. And since you brought up statistics being manipulated, let me share some facts that can't be manipulated. The United States has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of its prisoners. We incarcerate people at rates higher than authoritarian regimes. Black Americans are incarcerated at rates 5 times higher than whites, despite using drugs at similar rates. Judge Judy tried to speak, but her voice was weak. Those are just numbers. No, Crockett interrupted firmly. Those are lives. Those are families destroyed. Those are communities devastated by policies that people like you call tough but fair, while never examining whether they were actually just. And then came the moment that would be replayed millions of times. Jasmine Crockett leaned back, her expression shifting from professional to deeply personal. You want to talk about accountability, Judge Shineland? Let's talk about accountability. You built a career on entertainment disguised as justice. You turned real people's problems into TV drama. You made millions of dollars yelling at people who couldn't fight back because they needed the appearance fee. The audience gasped. And now you have the audacity to lecture me about justice? You, who turned judicial proceedings into a spectacle. You, who made a fortune mocking people's pain. Judge Judy's face went from red to pale. For the first time in decades, she was speechless. But Jasmine Crockett saved her coldest moment for last. She stood up slowly, maintaining eye contact with Judge Judy. Your Honor, she said, the title now dripping with sarcasm. You asked what my problem is. My problem isn't with accountability. It's with hypocrisy. My problem isn't with justice. It's with people who profit from injustice and then lecture others about responsibility. She paused, her voice dropping to that same whisper-quiet tone that commanded more attention than a scream. You've made a career out of being tough. But being tough on people who can't fight back isn't strength. It's bullying. And I don't get intimidated by bullies, no matter how famous they are. The studio fell into complete silence. Judge Judy sat stunned, her mouth slightly open, no words coming out. For a woman who built her reputation on always having the last word, she had been completely disarmed by a congresswoman who never raised her voice, never showed anger, but systematically dismantled every argument and challenged every assumption. Anderson Cooper, sensing the moment was over, tried to regain control. We're going to take a commercial break, but the damage was done. Judge Judy, the woman who had dominated television for decades by intimidating others, had just been calmly, coldly, and completely demolished on live television. As they cut to commercial, the cameras caught Judge Judy sitting alone, looking smaller than anyone had ever seen her. Jasmine Crockett calmly gathered her papers with a satisfied expression of someone who had just won the biggest case of her career. Within seconds of the commercial break, social media erupted. The hashtag Jasmine Destroys Judy was trending worldwide before the show even finished airing. Video clips of Crockett's calm demolition of Judge Judy were being shared faster than servers could handle. The most viral clip was the moment Jasmine said, "I don't get intimidated by bullies, no matter how famous they are." That 10-second soundbite got over 50 million views in the first 24 hours and became an instant meme template. Twitter user at PoliticalFacts posted, "Jasmine Crockett just gave a masterclass in how to dismantle someone without raising your voice." Judge Judy got destroyed and couldn't even respond. Another viral tweet from @LegalEagle read, "I've been practicing law for 15 years, and I've never seen someone get picked apart that methodically." Crockett didn't just win that debate. She performed surgery on live TV. The internet did what it does best and turned the confrontation into comedy gold. Memes flooded every platform, including side-by-side images of Judge Judy's confident beginning versus her stunned silence at the end captioned, "How it started versus how it ended." GIFs of Jasmine's calm delivery appear with captions like, "When someone tries to intimidate you, but you have actual facts." The political world reacted swiftly. Progressive politicians praised Crockett's performance. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, "This is what it looks like when expertise meets courage." Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself. She defended everyone who's ever been dismissed for telling uncomfortable truths about justice. Senator Bernie Sanders posted, "We need more leaders like Jasmine Crockett who can articulate why our criminal justice system needs fundamental reform, not just tougher sentences." Even moderate Democrats praised her composure. Conservative commentators tried to defend Judge Judy, but their arguments felt weak against the viral momentum. Ben Shapiro tweeted, "Disagree with her politics completely, but Jasmine Crockett demonstrated impressive debate skills. Facts don't care about your feelings, but presentation matters." News outlets scrambled to analyze what had just happened. The Washington Post headline read, "How Jasmine Crockett won a debate by never getting angry," while New York Times published an analysis titled, "The New Generation of Political Combat: When Legal Training Meets Media Savvy." Judge Judy's team went into full damage control mode, but the damage was done. For the first time in her career, she was trending for being on the losing side of an argument beyond politics. The confrontation sparked broader conversations about generational differences, racial justice, and how we discuss criminal justice reform in America. Dr. Angela Davis, the renowned activist and scholar, said in an interview, "What Jasmine Crockett did was demonstrate how the next generation of leaders can challenge entrenched thinking with facts, composure, and moral clarity." Law schools began using clips of the exchange in classes about effective argumentation. Late-night talk shows had a field day with the material. Stephen Colbert joked, "Judge Judy got so owned by Jasmine Crockett that she's going to need a new gavel, one made of ice, because that response was cold." Trevor Noah added, "You know you've lost an argument when your opponent stays calm the entire time, and you end up looking like the emotional one. That's not just losing, that's getting schooled." SNL dedicated its cold open to recreating the exchange, with the actors playing Crockett delivering increasingly devastating lines, while the actress playing Judge Judy shrunk smaller and smaller in her chair. The clip went viral internationally. The BBC ran a headline, "U.S. Congresswoman's calm dismantling of TV, Judge goes viral." Political analysts began discussing what this moment meant for both women's careers. For Jasmine Crockett, it established her as a rising star in the Democratic Party. For Judge Judy, it represented a rare public loss and raised questions about whether her confrontational style still resonated in 2024. Harvard Law School professor Charles Ogletree said, "This is a perfect case study in how legal training translates to political communication." Crockett built her argument like a closing statement, methodical, fact-based, and devastating. Within 48 hours of the confrontation, Jasmine Crockett's campaign raised over $500,000 from small donors inspired by her performance. Her team reported receiving donations from all 50 states with notes like, "Thank you for standing up to bullies." Teachers began showing clips of the exchange in civics classes as an example of effective debate. Business schools incorporated the footage into courses on negotiation and conflict resolution. Communication coaches started using Crockett performance as a masterclass in remaining calm under pressure. The international response was equally remarkable. European news outlets covered the story as an example of America's evolving political discourse. The calm, fact-based approach resonated particularly well with international audiences who often view American politics as overly theatrical. What made this confrontation different was its deeper message about how we discuss justice in America. Crockett didn't just win a debate. She demonstrated a new model for political leadership that combined expertise, composure, and moral clarity. Political observers began speculating about Crockett's future, mentioning her as potential Senate or even presidential material. What started as a routine CNN town hall became a defining moment for both participants and a viral sensation that captured America's attention. Jasmine Crockett's calm, fact-based dismantling of Judge Judy's arguments became a masterclass in effective political communication and established her as one of the most impressive rising stars in American politics. The video continues to be shared, studied, and celebrated as an example of how to handle confrontation with grace, intelligence, and devastating effectiveness. In an era of political theater and manufactured outrage, Jasmine Crockett showed that sometimes the most powerful response is the quietest one, especially when it's backed by facts and unshakable confidence. Judge Judy may have built a career on having the last word, but on this day, Jasmine Crockett proved that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones delivered without raising your voice, losing your composure, or backing down from the truth. And that's a lesson that went viral worldwide for all the right reasons. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible political moments like this one. What did you think of Jasmine Crockett's response? Let us know in the comments below. And stay tuned for our next video where we'll dive into the political implications of this viral moment.